Yeah, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for your attendance. Without further ado, we'll open the meeting by reading off the crib sheet. In accordance with the Openness of Local Bodies Regulations 2014, this meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed or communicated in other media platforms. The recording of this meeting will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. The council and officers in attendance are reminded to speak fully and use to speak clearly into the microphones available at all times. Remind that mobile phones should be turned off or put onto silent. Those present at the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. Go on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence, please.
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Sharon Morris, Councillor Lee Kaufman, Councillor Geoffrey Kaufman and Councillor David Lloyd-Hall.
Item 2, appointments of any substitutes.
None have been received.
Declaration of interest. Any declarations of interest? There being none. Do you want the microphones to be used or can you hear? Do you want the microphones to be used?
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a ghost. Well, when you say that, it's
Last night.
the way that the door opened last night.
To see this one of the last few meetings.
Could be David. It is. Well done.
Ghost then.
All right. It's falling, the door's open. And item 4. Item 4. Minutes of the previous meeting to read and confirm and sign. Can I do that? Everybody happy with me? Move. Thank you. Get rid of this one now. Item 5 then is the action list arising from the previous minutes. One of those actions was actually producing a document like this. In the main papers it was too small, so you've got a copy of that. There was another issue that I think Councillor Bolter brought up, and I think that's picked up further in the, I think you've probably spoken to.
Yeah, I've spoken on one of them, and I'll pick up the one about the operational risk when they do strategic risk register. Yeah.
Thank you. Any petitions? Item 6.
None have been received.
Great, now you're coming in.
Just offer a seat, that's it there. Item 7, please. Progress on actions arising from annual governance statement 21-22, pages 8 to 15. Mason?
Thank you, Chair. So this report updates the committee on progress of improvement actions that were set out in the annual governance statement for 2021-22. This is the annual governance statement that members approved at the last meeting in January, and it relates to the council's statement on the state of governance for the organisation. There were 11 actions identified through the annual assurance review, which is the process by which we are able to give a view around the governance of the organisation. There were then a further 17 actions identified which related to the adoption of the SIP for Financial Management Code. So we do expect these 17 actions to be one-off. You know, we're not a continuous thing. Once we've implemented them, that should be it. You know, we're adhering to the Financial Management Code. But on an annual governance statement basis, I do expect that each year when we do our annual governance statement, we will review our governance arrangements. We may well identify further improvements year on year as we continue to improve and as things change. So overall, on the 28 actions, good progress is being made. 16 of them have now been implemented. There are a small number that have had a revised target date, but they do all remain underway. A full status update is included in Appendix 1. And earlier I did spot an error. There are 2 items listed as in the Appendix 1 as AGS 7, I think it is. So there are actually 29 actions rather than 28. So apologies for that confusion in the report, and we'll pick that up next time. Thank you.
Okay, is there any questions there on the actions?
So I assume by the time we meet again, well, if somebody meets again, these actions as outstanding will be completed.
Says by June, I think.
Reasonable assumption to make?
The actions will be completed in line with the target dates that are either listed as the target date, or whether on the status update it says there is a revised target date. That is when they'll be done by. A lot of them are April, May, June, July, so I expect the next audit committee
That's
meeting.
fine. Well,
Yeah, we'll have made very good progress.
yes.
I will also say the new annual governance statement for 2022-23 will be completed prior to the end of June, and will come to the committee. It will be published on the council's website. So that will then likely have some new improvement actions identified, and it will need to report on these as well. So we very much don't want these hanging around, much longer. Get them in by the dates that they are set out to.
Okay.
Just one question, if you don't mind. You don't need that, do I? The staff performance appraisal approach, that's due April 2023. Are we close to that?
Yes. So Philippa is leading that. I haven't got the detail, but obviously we only receive these status updates in March. So
Sure. Okay.
it's the middle of March.
It's in the middle.
Philippa gave me that revised date in terms of April.
Okay.
So that is on track.
Thank you.
Okay. On page 12, just for clarification for me really, it's AGS 8. And on the right-hand side, it talks about benchmarking subscription in place via LG in 4. Could you just clarify that, please?
Yeah, so you might remember the Corporate Peer Challenge said that we should make use of benchmarking services. So that's where you benchmark your performance within a certain service area or your cost performance within a certain service area. As the status update alludes to, we have got some further work around benchmarking to undertake, but in terms of different providers for different service areas. But the one area we have moved forward with is finance. So we do benchmark, we subscribe to a financial benchmarking service through a company called LG Inform. And as part of that subscription service, we get benchmarking information about where we stand on things like our usable reserves, on things like new homes bonus and council tax and so on. So it's really helping us to understand our financial position and then raise awareness of that and forecast our financial forecasts.
Thank you. Anybody else at the moment? I'll stay with page 12, AGS 11, Development Anti-Fraud Awareness Raising Programme. I've just simply put in there, will members, or future members of this committee be included in that?
So we're currently putting together a members training programme following the elections. So we'll make sure that that is included within that training programme. So there'll be some fraud awareness, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions there? I may go on to page 13. FMC 6. Again, it's on the right-hand side. It's although it says complete. The new medium-term financial strategy approach includes scenario analysis. Can you just clarify that for me?
Yeah, so the scenario assessments, it's good practice to have a look at whatever your financial forecasts are, and for a medium-term financial plan, we're looking at a 5-year period. Good practice dictates that you look at some scenario assessments of, okay, so these are your forecasts, what might change, what might be other potential scenarios that deviate from your expected position. So the latest medium-term financial plan forecasts that were delivered as part of the budget report in February included a couple of scenario analyses. They included the best case and the worst case scenario that it could show the potential range of outcomes compared to where we expect it to be. We then also did a little bit of extra analysis around some key funding and expenditure lines, and we demonstrated what would be the impact of a 1% change in the assumptions around those different areas of income and expenditure. So that's what it's alluding to, and as it says, the new way that we do our medium-term financial planning includes scenario analysis as our standard approach. So we'll always
See that?
Yes, yeah. So yeah.
Oh, that's helpful. Bill?
So this benchmarking, for want of a better word,
Yeah.
there'd be a cost to joining that, I assume.
Yeah.
Where has that been reported?
Well, through Performance and Finance and Development Committee.
The PFD?
Yeah.
So there'd be an item there about that?
Well, there won't be, because it's within existing budgetary resources that we funded the cost of it.
Right. The reason I asked that, Chair, we're looking at the statutory duty and what is discretionary. And to do that, we need to know what all the different costings are. Because, we may need to look at some of these costings that we're doing and say, no, it's not cost effective to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I ask if it could be separated out so we know exactly what we're paying for.
Mm-hmm.
It might be financially beneficial, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen the results yet. But we need to know to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe helpful for you. But, we need to look at what we're spending and how much we're spending and what we're spending this on.
Okay. What's the request there?
Well, I think probably as we're going through risk assessment, risk management and the benefits of that particular project, can it be assessed in that way? is it a subscription, you said? Subscription?
Yes, it is, yeah.
The value of that subscription, what you expect the outcome to be. And is it value for money, perhaps? That's,
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't want to make it too onerous, but at the same time, if we're being asked to differentiate between statutory and is it something, it wouldn't be cost effective to do that sort of thing, or is it?
well, it's on the back of a peer, you know, a corporate peer challenge recommendation as well. I will, you know, this isn't, you know, it's something that we're doing, taking on board comments from local government association, and without this subscription service, I would probably lose an officer for maybe 3 months of the year, in all honesty, trying to work out and benchmark where we are in terms of our funding compared to other local authorities, and therefore I wouldn't be able to go into the discussions that I am doing at the moment with various different bodies and organisations around our funding position and trying to lobby for more funding for this organisation. So as an example, that is in a sentence, your cost benefit analysis. I haven't got the money to hand, the information to hand of how much we pay for that subscription service. We can get that for you and share that with
I'd have
you.
an explanation, that'd be nice to have that, and the amount of money it's costing us, and your explanation.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But just have a figure, you know, without any, well, there's no figure here, but say we're doing it without.
I mean, that's just one part of the story as well, because there's going to be various different benchmarking, you know, for waste, for different service areas.
I think
Right, Dave.
it's maybe something for, obviously, for PFD, not necessarily for audit, because obviously audit's about the process, but would it be possible for that figure, so the statutory fees and subscriptions and the discretionary fees and subscriptions, are they separated out in any way, shape or form to the report in PFD?
No, but
Like all the benchmarking is under discretionary, and that's discretionary fees, and there's
and
a
yeah.
figure of X and statutory fees and.
Yeah, well, I think we're heading there as part of, you know, recommendations that the auditors make, and that was mentioned last night in that differentiation between statutory and discretionary spend. So, you know, that is something that we still need to. We did a little bit in the budget setting report, but we still need to do more around that. So we can take that on board, and I think that will come as part of the sustainability programme work that is underway at the moment, but will really commence in line with development of the corporate plan with the new administration. One of the themes of that sustainability programme was about an outcome-based budgeting exercise. So that's a wholesale review of the council's budget. So that will include that analysis around discretionary and non-discretionary spend. So I think that's already scheduled, if you like, to happen. But yeah, more than happy to provide some further information about that particular subscription service. But like I say, there will be others as, you know, as things progress. There may well be around different services that they're different quite often for different service areas.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else at the moment? Can I then go to page 14? FMC 9, review stakeholders' engagement approach in developing annual budgets. Clarify member engagement, please.
So the member engagement is really just talking about the conversations, the dialogue that was had with members through the budget process. So I think for developing the 22-23 budget, there was a certain timetable and a certain approach. We overhauled that this last budget setting round so that we actually had a very early conversation. Well, we started with the development of the medium-term financial strategy. We then had a very early conversation with members. In principle ideas, we then, as officers went away, came back with a draft budget position, which we then asked you to approve before we went out to consultation, and then it came back again. So that engagement approach was around that with members. I think the other bit was about the public consultation side of things. Obviously, we did quite comprehensive public consultation and got a wealth of responses through that. So again, that relates to that item. It did, yeah, with the budget, yeah.
Chair, can
Yeah.
public consultation exercise, can it be coordinated with the forums so that when the forums take place, we actually engage with the residents there and then? It might an officer has to come but to a forum, but
Sure, I think, yeah, Bev, can get Bev to
that,
make a note of that for next year's budget process. Yeah, I think that's a decent idea. And I think also it's probably worth mentioning next year it will include the tenant and leaseholders
yes.
consultation forum, tenant and leaseholders forum, which is just starting to pick up some momentum. So that will be another group on the HRA.
Okay, anything else at the moment? I've got one more. On page 15, it's just FMC 16. Again, it's just a clarification where it's talks about a review and identification of an appropriate improvements to management accounts to be undertaken. And on the right-hand side, it says complete, fair enough, but no substantial improvements made to date. Does that mean we're
Yeah, perhaps, yeah, it probably would have been helpful if it just said complete there. It just means that we've reviewed the way that we do the management accounts and we haven't identified anything that needs to be improved as well, nothing substantial. So we've concluded that action complete now.
any particular questions left for that item? No? So I'll go to the recommendations, if I can find it. Okay, the recommendations is simply that the content of the report be noted. I can remove that from the chair. Seconder, please. Thank you. So everybody's it's all unanimous. So if I go to page 16, which is agenda item 8, I think that's Bev dealing with that one, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Can you hear me okay without the speaker, or do you want me to? Yeah, so this report presents a strategic risk register for the committee's consideration. The register has been reviewed and updated by the internal risk management group and senior leadership team. That's in line with the process we have outlined in the risk management policy, which was approved by this committee at the last meeting in January. The strategic risk register contains a total of 15 risks, and there have been no additional risks added to the risk register. Mitigated scores for all risks have been maintained static since the previous review, and that can be visually represented by the horizontal arrows shown in the far right column of this register, that's Appendix 1. Risk reference CR14 is to be removed from the risk register. So that was the risk that coronavirus would result in significant loss of staff or a risk of national measures impacting on service delivery. Mitigating actions that we've had in place are now embedded into the way we work and a business as usual, such as working from home. So because that risk is maintained at that mitigated level now throughout the year, we're removing that risk as a strategic risk. So it will now go off the register following this meeting going forward. Since the last committee, there have been a number of updates made to existing controls, management actions and target dates, which are detailed in section 2.3 of the report and in the review commentary column on the actual risk register, it's Appendix 1. So I'm happy to take any questions or any comments on this register.
Any comments this far? Can I start then, if I may? I'll do that. Found it. It's on page 23, CR9. When you go across from left to right, I can understand the 4 and the 4, and you get the total. It's in red, then it goes across, you get the total, and it goes yellow. And there's a gap, it goes to green. There's nothing in there that suggests why that's gone to green.
Yes, the risks have been updated. So previously they would have had further management actions in which have now been moved into existing controls. So everything that we were planning to undertake has been undertaken, but the mitigated risk score has not been updated. So really that mitigated risk score needs to be updated to be the green, because we've now actioned everything into the risk.
So will we,
Make that amendment for next time, and obviously we'll review the position again for next time.
great, thank you. Any other comments anybody want to make on those? Okay, all right, go to the recommendation then on page 16. That the report and the street risk register as set out in appendix 1 be considered. I can move that from the chair. On seconder, please. Bill, thank you. Everybody okay with that? Unanimous. Again, thank you very much indeed. We go to page 26, agenda item 9. Accounting policy, Rashpal.
I'll present the report.
Oh, Bev, sorry.
So this report presents the accounting policies and materiality levels, and that will be applied when we're producing the 22-23 statement of accounts for committee's consideration. The report's presented to the committee on an annual basis in accordance with the audit committee's terms of reference, which require the committee to consider the appropriate accounting policies that are being followed. So the accounting policies are reviewed and updated annually by officers in line with the latest SIP for Accounting Code of Practice, which is then based on International Financial Reporting Standards, or IFRSs. Paragraph 2.6 of the report outlines the amended IRFSs been incorporated into the 22-3 Code of Practice, but none of those changes have impacted on our actual council accounting policies, so we've not had to make any changes as a result of those changes to the code. The implementation of IFRS 16, which is in relation to leases, has previously been delayed for a number of years, and it's now been adopted into the code to allow for early implementation. But implementation is not required until 24-25. It's not expected to have a material impact on us for Toby and Wigston, so we intend to adopt it by 24-25. So at this point, we've not amended the accounting policies for that. So in summary, there's been no significant changes to the accounting policies. There's been some minor amendments and updates to wording completed as part of the review. Section 3 and Appendix 2 of the report detail levels of materiality that will apply when we're preparing the accounts and the notes to the accounts. So materiality is applied to ensure that omissions and misstatements do not happen that could influence the assessment of the council's statement of accounts. The internal materiality level, which we're setting in this report, is to ensure the finance team identifies significant items and variances and include and disclose those in the financial statements. External audit also apply materiality level when they're auditing the accounts, and the methodology we've applied in setting the level for 22-23 that we're going to work to in producing the statement of accounts has made reference to external audit level of materiality, but we've set out the internal level at lower than the external audit materiality level for the previous year. So we make sure that we do incorporate everything that they expect us and want us to. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, okay. Any questions? No. Any questions at all?
I was just looking at 23, the related party transactions. My concern is with the pension fund. There's quite a lot higher pension fund. Does that follow an IR or something to change? Because it's about 32 million, I think, on the pension fund. That's outstanding. I'm just going from the accounting on the PFD stuff. What does that actually mean? Related party transfer?
Adrian?
Oh, sorry. Page 47. The last point on that, 23.
23, yes.
In relation to where it's mentioned in terms of related party transactions, and it's listed there as the pension fund, I think it'd be, if a councillor was potentially, I think, sitting on, or an officer, sitting on the pension fund committee and therefore involved in those decisions around the pension fund, it would then impact on our position in terms of our pension fund position, but you declare as a related party.
Right.
That's why it's listed there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe another example might be if the pension fund if you are maybe a significant major shareholder of a certain company as a member or an officer, and then Leicestershire local government pension scheme invests in your company, that might be another sort of related party transaction.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously pension funds invest. That's what they do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be another.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Any other questions, Ms. Gray? Okay, then we go to page 26 for the recommendations to consider and approve. Items 1, 2 and 3. Move that from the chair. Seconder for that, please.
Yeah.
Bill,
Yeah.
everybody happy with the? Yeah.
Yeah.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, we can go to item 10 on page 49. Internal audit progress report. I think that's Tracy, isn't it?
That's Mark Watkins from 360 Assurance.
Oh, sorry, Mark.
Come in.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
I forgot you were there.
Yeah, I'm up on the screen, hopefully.
Mark.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is the normal progress report that comes to each audit committee. So it just updates the committee on audit activity, specifically sort of finalised pieces of work since I last reported to the audit committee back in February. So yeah, just sort of a couple of months later, an update on how we're getting on in delivering the 22-23 plan. So page 49 on the covering report shows that we've issued 2 final reports, and we've also undertaken 2 pieces of grant certification work, which was fine, and we're able to provide that certification in a timely fashion. With respect to the 2 reports, we have premises licensing, which we've given a moderate assurance opinion to, and housing rents, which we've given a significant assurance opinion to. So in terms of the premises licensing audit, the reasons why we've gone for moderate assurance are summarised, I think, on page 52. So just to try and put a little bit of detail around that, I think the main areas where we've raised recommendations are to do with the level of information and the accuracy of information currently being recorded on the uniform system. So there was some missing information, particularly around dates when licenses were due and when actions taken. I think part of the reason for that, it's an ongoing issue with when the system was changed from LALPAC to uniform, and I think some of the information didn't come across correctly. So I think there's some issues around that. But we also found that although there is the facility to use handheld devices to record information straight onto uniform, and I'm particularly talking about inspections, complaints, and any enforcement action, that sort of records and information around those type of events is currently being recorded outside of uniform rather than in uniform itself. And I think the other main issue that management were already aware of is that licensing fees are annually renewed, so there's an annual fee to be paid. Currently, that's not invoiced or chased, so there's a date, there's the annual date when licensees should be paying that fee, and in a number of cases that doesn't appear to have happened. So there is a process currently being undertaken that sort of Dave is running. I think it's John Wells actually is sort of operationally running that to identify licensees who have not paid, and in some instances that might have been for more than a year, but some of the problems around previous dates not being on the system at all, the date when the license was first issued, is hampering that to a certain extent to find out exactly how many years have not been paid for. So that is an ongoing process, but I think going forward the solution to that would be to use the uniform system to issue reminders, and indeed perhaps invoices could be looked at as well as a way of actually improving control over that income stream. On the housing rents audit, we gave significant assurance. The one area where we have given moderate assurance is around the integrity of the orchard system. There are some system functionality issues at the moment whereby rent account information is either being overwritten or disappearing, and so that's causing a lot of manual intervention to have to take place at the moment to I think in particular the direct debit information is quite often being overwritten, and there's a manual process to go back into the system at the moment and put that information back in, which obviously isn't ideal. So that's why we've given that element of the rent system a moderate assurance. But other than that, the other sort of control objectives that we looked at were operating effectively. Obviously, there is, with COVID and then followed by the ongoing economic crisis, there is pressure on rents being paid, but we are satisfied that there's appropriate processes in place to recover rent, although obviously with the current situation rent arrears may increase, but we feel that the council is doing everything that it can to recover rents. We don't think there's an issue with the actual control process in place. The report also provides the latest recommendation tracking information. There are only 8 recommendations that were due by the end of March that are still to be completed. So that's a further reduction from the 11 that we reported that were due by the end of January, which was in the last report. So I think that's an indication that managers are taking audit recommendations seriously and are acting on them. So the one medium risk recommendation that's been overdue for more than 6 months is to do with implementing a performance monitoring system for responsive repairs. But that, I think, there's a valid reason why that's still open at the moment, and that's because work is still being undertaken to put in place a contractor through a contracting arrangement for responsive repairs. So once that's in place, then we'll be able to implement the performance monitoring around that contractor's performance. Finally, just to say that all the other audits that are in progress are coming along well, and I don't foresee there being an issue in them being completed either by the end of this month or early May, in time for me to then provide the annual report and head of audit opinion, which will come to, I think you'll have a committee in June.
It's in June, I think, yeah.
Yeah. So the opinion for this year's work I say this year, 22-23's work will come to the June audit committee. So I'm now happy to take any questions that committee may have.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions, anybody? Bill?
Yeah, with kind of the licensing problem, one of the problems is with food premises that they pop up and don't tell us they're actually in business. You know, we find out by default usually, by word of mouth. So we've always gone a step behind. People don't, in inverted commas, don't realise they have to register. So we're always a step behind. And that's one of the problems we have these delays, because of catching up and then starting again. Because, you know, so it's very difficult with food hygiene licensing to actually do that, especially with COVID-19, because a lot of small business started up in kitchens. You know, so that was a very busy time, shall I say, for food inspectors. So that's an ongoing problem, I suppose, which all councils have. We're not alone on that one, I don't think, are we?
No. I've looked at sort of food licensing or food inspections previously, and that has been an issue. This particular report focuses on alcohol and entertainment licensing for premises, but previous reviews where we've looked at food inspections, that has been an issue. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the other one, Chair, I'm always voiced my concern about this, is the contractor in place to do day-to-day repairs. At the minute, all repairs are benchmarked price-wise, so we know what we're paying. I'm concerned about some of these other companies that come in and do these works. I'm particularly concerned regarding major voids which were put out to British Gas at the moment. It's not British Gas who's doing them, they've subcontracted it out to another company who've subcontracted somebody else. So it goes on. So that work at the moment is, shall I say, I'm waiting to see the result of that in another month or so's time to see how effective it is. So I'm interested in how that goes before we move forward with this other one contract to do all the day-to-day repairs.
Any comments, Mark?
I'm just checking on my next item, which is the plan for this current year and the following 2 years. We do have housing maintenance, repairs and voids to look at this coming year. That's in Q3 of this year. So we should be in a position to provide some independent assurance around that when we do that piece of work.
Yeah, well, with respect, that's fine, but you only look at the finance side of it. I'm looking at the length of time it takes to do repairs and the length of time it takes for the contractor to get to do the repair in the first place, and also the quality of repair that takes place.
Yeah, that will
you're
be
looking at.
Included as part of the audit.
It's looking at,
Yeah.
Any other questions, Bill?
Thank you, Chair. My concern is with the IT side of it. You mentioned that the direct debits are being overwritten. Is that an IT issue and therefore you've given it an advisory on the final table that you did? The internal audit plan against IT governance health check, is that part and parcel of the uniform system? Is there a flaw in that?
I think that would be a separate audit that we're undertaking around the overall governance arrangements for IT. In terms of the specific rents system and the issue that they're having, my understanding is that has been raised with the IT system provider to be resolved.
Okay. So I suppose it's more operational then.
Yeah. So we should that will action on that particular point will be tracked through our normal recommendation tracking process, so which we report regularly to the committee by exception. So we report on actions that have not been implemented in a timely fashion. So if there is an ongoing issue with the provider of the orchard system being unable to resolve these issues, then that will flag itself up through the tracking process and come back to the committee later in the year.
Okay. And the issues, the level of assurance, what makes it go from significant to full? How does it progress?
A full assurance report is normally where we have made, there are no recommendations for improvement in a system that we've looked at, which is relatively rare. I'm not saying that we don't provide full assurance, because we have done for Opium and Wigston in the past on systems, but it would be in an instance where we've actually found no opportunities at all to further improve controls. Generally speaking, if we provide significant assurance, that I'm comfortable with a significant assurance opinion. It would be nice to have a full assurance opinion on everything. The reality is that significant assurance tends to be the standard that you would mainly aim for, I think. When I come to the committee and give a moderate assurance opinion, or as I have done with the alcohol and premises licensing, or indeed lower than that, a limited assurance opinion, I think that's where management and the committee's focus needs to be, where we're giving moderate or limited assurance opinion, which again is relatively rare. In most cases, we provide significant assurance for OB and Wigston, but occasionally moderate, and less occasionally than that, sometimes limited. We've never given a no assurance opinion.
So it's more subjective than objective?
It's based on the auditor's professional opinion, which is based on the findings of the audit. But you're right, there is a level of subjectivity to it, but that's why all audit reports come through me as a sort of qualified auditor of many years' experience, so that I can provide an opinion that's based on experience and what I've seen elsewhere as well. So hopefully you should be able to place a reasonable level of confidence in the opinion that I'm providing on that basis.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Excuse me. Any other questions? David?
Yeah, thank you. We've got, so premises licensing, we've got key issues: cleanse information, record notes and complaints, utilise handheld devices, utilise systems, undertake exercise to identify unpaid annual fees, and then strengthen the level of quality and performance of information. All of those things, back to one of two things, is do we have a process issue, i.e. we don't have a process that identifies this is what these people should be following, or is it a people and resource issue? You mentioned that we've moved from loud pack to uniform, so therefore
right.
A training issue, i.e. people have not been trained on the system, they've not been trained to use the handheld devices properly, or do we just simply not have the people?
I think it's a team of two individuals. I think in terms of whether training has been provided, I think the answer is yes. I would probably refer, if you want a detailed answer to that, I would probably refer that to Dave Gill, to provide a response on that. So I think it's more of an issue about getting to grips with the system. I think he would probably say that it's probably not a training issue, but it is around actually getting the system to operate properly, and that's about getting the information that's already on there correct, and then making sure that subsequently all activity is recorded on the system rather than outside of the system.
So when we say recorded outside the system, are we saying that people are purposely not using the system for what it's designed for, or is that the system doesn't allow us to store that information on that system?
My understanding is the system is capable of providing that information and recording that information, and that's the handheld devices assist in doing that. I'm not aware that there's a functionality issue with the handheld devices, but again, I would say if there's a specific question on that, it's probably best to refer that to Dave Gill for an answer.
Go on, Tracy, yes, I'm going to suggest something there, but go on.
Yeah, well, just obviously, just by way of suggestion, the committee can request for Dave. I think he'll be at the next audit committee anyway, because he'll have a report due, I'm sure, around standards and ethics. But there can be some, more detailed discussion if the audit committee wish for that at the next meeting, so we can request that. I think the other thing is, and sorry, Mark, if I can't see it and it is in the report, but I guess there'll be a number of recommendations that flow from this. So the audit committee will be advised if those recommendations aren't implemented on time, they'll come back to the committee also. Yeah,
that's correct, Tracy. Yeah, so this is a summary for the audit committee to look at. There is a detailed report that has a number of recommendations that are on the tracking system, as previously stated, and as Tracy's just said, if there is an issue with those not being implemented, I will be reporting that to the committee through the progress report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's an action plan for the next audit committee. Would you invite Mr. Gill to it to go through those issues that have just been raised? Tracy, that would be the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what will happen, Mark, at the next meeting. Mr. Gill will be invited to go through that process. Okay. Any other questions at all? Have you finished, Mark, with this particular issue, this particular agenda?
That for item 10, I have, unless there are any further questions.
Any further questions?
I can move on to item 11 if you're happy with that after.
Right, we'll just go through the recommendation on item 10 then, and that is that the progress made in delivery of the 22-23 audit plan be noted. I can move that from the chair. Have a seconder, please. Yeah. Sorry, is it?
Yeah.
Bridget, yeah, thank you. And I think it's unanimous. Everybody's happy with that. So unanimous again. Thank you. Okay, we've gone to item 11, which is the strategic internal audit plan.
Thank you, Chair. So, as I updated the committee in February, CW Audit were going at the time through a process of merging with another larger internal audit consortium called 360 Assurance. That has now gone through, and this plan, it's obviously perhaps the first time you're seeing something with the sort of the 360 Assurance badge on it, and that's obviously because although it was produced whilst CW Audit was still in existence, it does relate to the time period 23-24 onwards, where your internal audit is now provided by 360 Assurance. So that's just a little bit of an explanation as to why this plan, it's fairly similar to what you've seen in the past, but as I say, it's got slightly different headings, and some of the appendices are slightly different, which I'll talk you through in a moment. Before we start, though, there is one typo in this document, which you may already have noticed, so apologies for that. Bev managed to noticed it, but so thank you, Bev, for that, but it was too late to change it in terms of getting the documentation to the committee. It has been changed now, but obviously not for what the papers you're looking at. So on page 62, which is a sort of a brief summary of what's going to be happening in 23-24, it makes reference to the fact that the HR staff development audit will be done in Q2. But on page 70, which is a bit more detail behind the first year of the plan, it says it's Q1. So it's the Q1 that's wrong, and that has now been changed. So it is Q2 when we're planning to look at HR staff development. So I'll just get that one out the way first of all. This plan has been developed as normal by reviewing the strategic risk register, linking the plan links to the strategic register, so where our audits provide a level of independent assurance that contributes to those, how well those risks are being controlled. We've noted that in the plan. We've also met individually with members of SLT and then had a meeting with the whole SLT to agree the plan and ensure that it contains the right level of audits in the right areas as far as the senior team were concerned as well. So it's gone through that process. So the summary of the plan is, as I said, sort of page 61, page 62, and then the appendices are, so that Appendix 1 or Appendix A is the detail of what we're going to be covering in 23-24, including a brief outline scope at this stage, and obviously identifies which quarters we're going to be doing the work in. Appendix B is the 3-year plan. And then we also have a fourth appendix, which is something you won't have, sorry, a third appendix, Appendix C, which is something you won't have seen before. It's called the High Level Audit Universe. And what that actually attempts to do is to identify all of the auditable areas that we could look at, and then identifies where we're intending to cover them in the 3-year strategic plan. There are some auditable areas in the high level audit universe which are not included in this current 3-year plan, so that it's just flagging those up for officers and members to sort of demonstrate that there are some elements that could be looked at, could be included in future plans, but obviously internal audit is a finite resource. In an ideal world, it would be great to audit everything every year. That's just not affordable. So there are some areas that we do on a cyclical basis. There are other areas that are not in this current 3-year plan. It flags them up for consideration for future years, really. That's the idea of the audit universe appendix. And then the final appendix is very similar to what you've seen before. It's the charter that directs our work and regulates our relationship with yourselves for the coming year, and that's based on the standards outlined in the Public Sector Internal Audit Standards document. So I'm happy to take any questions, really.
Yes, any questions? Anybody? No. Can I just mark on to page 87?
87, let me just...
87, so it's only terms of reference following in relation.
Just find that. 87. Yep.
That's the 360 assurance terms of reference for a audit committee,
That's right. Yeah.
or a audit committee, not necessarily for this one.
Oh, hang on a minute. Let me just. No, I think it's your audit. This is coming from your terms of reference. Yeah. Yeah, it's a restatement of your terms of reference.
Okay. Some of the words I've not seen before, so that's probably my fault. It is. Okay. 360 assurance. All of it is it's all new, is it? It's all. I've seen it before. I've not seen it before.
So,
No,
do you want me to come in there, Mark? Well, you're better placed to. But I think we raised this at the last audit committee, that 360 assurance have merged with CW audit. So this is why on your agenda you've got the previous item is CW audit, and then going into the new year from April 2023, CW audit have merged with 360 assurance.
CWE after
Yeah.
in future.
Yeah, that's right.
Got both in my head.
Yeah.
Clarify.
yes. CW audit is sadly no more, but you have got the same team as you had before. 360 assurance is roughly twice the size of CW audit, so I don't think we were ever going to be called CW audit afterwards. It was always going to be 360 assurance. Yeah.
Okay, then let me just clarify again on page 61. My benefit, it's the assurance or advisory. Can you give me a definition of the two? Advisory?
Yes.
Assurance, please.
Yeah. So if almost all of our work is assurance related, so that's where I will end up providing you an opinion. So like we spoke about before, a full assurance, significant, moderate, limited or no assurance opinion. Advisory work is a little bit more consultative and does not result in an opinion being provided. So it's related. It's stuff that. So a good example would be what we do for you on. Let me just have a look at the plan, and then I can. The National Fraud Initiative. So we provide advice on running that, and we sort of link in with what the team needs to be doing for the national fraud exercises that take place, and we sort of oversee that and monitor it, but we don't actually deliver it. So that does not result in an audit report being issued with an assurance on it. It's just a service that's kind of related to what we do, that we have some expertise in, so we help out on that.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Any questions? No. Okay, all right. So we go to recommendations on page 57 then. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Is to approve the strategic internal audit plan for 23, 24 to 25, 26. If I can move that from the chair, do I have a seconder, please? David, Councillor David Loyal. Everybody happy with this? Yeah. Thank you. Item 12, we've gone to our committee work plan. There is no committee work plan for the remainder of 22 and 23. Thank you for your time, Mark. Appreciate that. Thank you for everybody down the table. Now,
thank you, Chair.
we're closed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.